Good morning, Jan.
Michael, good morning.
How's it going, sir?
Everything fine? I had the opportunity to look a little bit into a lot of stuff, again, into the database, into Xamarin a little bit. So in the beginning, I made some progress on the queries with your help. Started questioning about the user interface.
Ah.
And right now, why are they?
And now you have people looking for your help.
Yeah, but that will be for another moment. Yeah, that's not urgent. But right now I wanted to switch to the main branch of Jinaga, and I was on the SQLite branch, a local branch. And if I do git status, it tells me nothing to commit, working tree clean. And when I want to switch, it tells me, please commit your changes.
Ah.
Yeah. You have one moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
Ik zit juist in een meeting. Straks daar. So they know they have to be patient. Nothing urgent. No, Git told me, so nothing to commit, working tree clean. And when I want to switch, when I do a checkout of the other branch, it tells me, please commit your changes or stash them before you would switch.
Yeah, that sometimes has to do with line endings. So it's yeah, one thing that you can do is git reset -- hard, and then that's that checks out your working set again from the local repository. And if it is a line endings problem, that'll have the right line endings when you do that.
I think I tried that last time, but it didn't solve the issue. And then I did something like df clean or something. I have to look it up again. And in the end, I threw away everything and I just cloned it again.
Oh no! Was there a lot of stuff on the SQLite branch?
There was nothing. No, that was in another repository where I had the same problem, and there was nothing special.
Okay.
And anyway, here in the SQLite branch, I have to throw it away anyway, because last time the NuGet packet that I thought I would use for Jinaga was completely the wrong one. I was checking a little bit further, and let me check. And in the end, we have to use something like SQLite-net-PCL. The PCL being there because of historical reasons. But apparently that's a layer on top of SQLite raw, on top of the SQLite pure. So the pure SQLite is just in C, programmed in C. Then on top you have the SQLite raw, which is a library that does the conversion between C and C#, the error handling, not just return an integer, but generate an exception. And then that last one, what was it? The PC SQLite-net-PCL. That's what will make sure that you have the correct underlying drivers for iOS, for Android, for Windows. I haven't tried it yet, but I'm wondering why we couldn't start with the middle layer, the one that does the translation to C#. Because in that top layer, there is also a little bit link. There is a very thin ORM layer, which actually we don't use, we don't need. So perhaps the raw layer, the middle layer, might even be more interesting.
Yeah, Yeah, I think that's worth a shot. So yeah, we can get it working with just desktop support for the short term, and then make sure that it works on mobile after that.
Yeah, because there are so many libraries for SQLite. There is a Microsoft library, but the Microsoft library it supports full link support, full entity framework support, all things that we don't need in this case.
Right. Yeah.
So I think the most efficient will be that one that I told you just now.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna try it out.
Okay. And I believe that SQLite-net is also distributed in pure source form. So you can just download it as a single file and add it to your project.
Yeah, it's just a single C# file that you can add. Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So we can. But if we make it, we just use the NuGet packet, then it's easier to update.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been looking a little bit into the database also. But I saw that in Jinaga, actually you only had to wait. I had it somewhere here. If I'm correct, there were only two tables which were useful. That was the edge table and the facts table. And then there was a signature table, I think. I don't know where I had it, that one.
Yeah, those are the two primary tables that you're going to need. Signature that records whenever a user that has a public key asserts a fact to be true, and so it records their signature on that fact. And so that will ultimately be used to validate incoming facts. So yeah,
the moment that we implement authentication and authorization.
Yeah.
Because I wrote down somewhere that we needed some more tables, but I think if we just have the edge table and the facts table, to start, that should be okay, I think.
Yeah, that's a good start. The next one that we're going to need is the Ancestor Table, which is currently implemented in Janaga.js as a recursive view.
Oh, wait, was it? Where did I put it? I created a table somewhere, and then I had a diagram of it. Select that was signature table, and then there was a user table. Yeah, and then there was a fact table. The fact table we need, and the edge table we need. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said the ancestor table?
Yes, so I believe that's currently implemented in Janaga.js as a recursive view, which basically recurses over the edge table. So given any fact, it'll give you back all of the ancestors, not just the immediate predecessors.
That I think I found as a collection in the memory store, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, it is. I believe that in an earlier version of the memory store, I actually just had it as a recursive function over the edge collection, but then I wanted to verify that the inserts worked correctly. To basically that table is there to optimize. So when you need to load some facts from the server, then you say, this is the key that I'm interested in. Now, give me all of the predecessors, and it realizes all of them. So it basically joins joins ancestor to the fact table in order to give you all of that JSON.
Okay. Because I was didn't finish it yet, but trying to save the facts to the table. I think that's the easiest part. The query part is going to be much more difficult.
Yes, yeah.
But, saving that I have a little bit time this week, perhaps it will work.
Yeah. Turning
No.
a pipeline into a SQL query is a lengthy operation, and the one that's in Janaga.js is just a linear pipeline. It doesn't branch and it doesn't have projections the way that Janaga.net does. So it's going to be
It's
even
gonna
more
be
difficult.
more difficult. Mhm. Yeah. And I had a question about. Wait, where did I have the copy? Let me see. The user interface last time. I thought I had it here. Yeah. Open that one. Perhaps I better share it. Screen. This one. Live. Yeah. You've seen that one.
Yes.
So what I did regularly, and I think also in the current version of DWS, when I make a task, I copy all the data in a new task record. So a client, I have the lookup table client, and I copy it into the task. So it's a new table.
Mm-hmm.
The same for invoices, for example. Because a lookup table, people can change it. People change an address, and yeah, then on your invoice, if you take back an invoice from last year, the address is not the original one.
Right. Yeah.
Now with Jinaga, we have immutable data. So our lookup table is immutable.
Mm-hmm.
So would you still make a copy to a final? For example, if you would say, I make an invoice, would you copy to an invoice table, or would you reference?
I would have a
So,
reference to the mutable property that was current at the time that you created the task. So
okay.
so yeah, you've got your client fact, and then successor is using the mutable property pattern of client description or client name, client address. Well, you've got yard address.
Yeah.
So that mutable property, I would for the task refers back to the client, but it also refers, well, let's say invoice specifically. Invoice refers back to the client, but it also refers back to the yard address or or the client description, so that it kind of locks that in place.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, in order to print the invoice, if you just have the reference to the client, you would have to do a successor join to find the current successor, and that's your signal. Oh, wait a minute, this invoice is no longer immutable because I'm doing a successor join. So if everything is predecessor, then it's immutable. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just capture that reference to the current name.
Okay. But then, if we see that screen, it was for client. For client name, it's just a combo box,
Mm-hmm.
and that one showed the client name and also the yard address. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a print screen, so I cannot. I can click on it, but it
Right.
doesn't do anything. But it also allows you, for example, to overwrite or to type in a new yard address.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment that you select something, or perhaps perhaps I should just open the application and share that one. Just make sure that it is not, that is my test version and not a client version. Yeah, it's my test version. Let's do it that way. That's going to be more clear. Yes, and then I share that one. Okay. So if you see the screen?
Yes.
So, for example, I select a customer here, but this is in Dutch. Then he fills out the yard location here. So, street, the number, the postal code, and the place. If I say, okay, that's wrong, I can just overwrite this with whatever I want, and it will save that.
Yes.
Because I store it in a separate location. Now, what I could do here is add in my lookup table, add a record with that new data, a new yard. But for example, to all the records, the real lookup records, I add a successor validated flag, meaning that it has been officially validated. And for this one, I don't add that flag yet, which means it will only be visible to the technician who entered that address.
Yes.
And then later on, the secretary can check all the non-validated yard addresses. And she can say, okay, that one, actually, no, that's an invalid address. Or actually, that's a new yard, which was not yet in the lookup table. I will validate it. And then it becomes available for everybody.
Okay, yeah. This is actually pretty similar to a feature that I did on the Nameless project. Yeah. So yeah, I would have the validated fact as a successor to the address. So it's now something that you can do two things. You can query for all the addresses where not exists validated, and now you know which ones the secretary needs to go through, and then you can query the addresses where exists validated, and those are the ones that you show to everybody.
Yeah.
And then you do a union of all the addresses where the technician that entered it is me. And now with the union of those things, you can pick: do I show the public one, or do I have a newer one that I need to see?
Yeah, I think that would be a nice solution. All right, I'm gonna do it that way. Then I was thinking in the UI. Imagine if I have multiple current versions of the street name of a yard. So originally, I wanted just to show if there is a version made by the technician and a version made by a dispatcher. On the telephones, I would just show the technician's version to keep it simple.
Right, yeah.
He made something, he sees his version, as long as there are two versions which are both current. The moment that the dispatcher merges them into a next successor, then the technician will see the latest version. Yeah, he doesn't see history; he just sees the latest version then.
Right. Yeah.
But the problem is, imagine that two dispatchers make a change. So this time the technician is not involved, and so the two versions are equal important to the technician. I don't want to complicate things and show him the two versions. So I think in that case, I will just show him the most recent version.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the same technician making two different changes, or is this two different technicians?
So dispatchers, the dispatcher is, for example, there are two dispatchers in the company, and one dispatcher changes the name or the address of a yard to number 7A and the other one to 7B. So there are two current versions, and the technician wants to want to select an address.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So yeah,
what
you
am I going to show him?
you want the technician to see the dispatcher's information, even if it hasn't yet been validated, right?
The dispatcher's information, I think, is immediately validated.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But I could imagine these are really edge cases, but
Mm-hmm.
I like to think about them
Oh yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's the advantage of
If
doing this kind of analysis.
yeah, if
Yeah. Yeah.
if
So I
you
think
have two
that makes sense.
technicians which do simultaneously or without communication a conflicting change, what should the technician see? Because the technician, he doesn't need to know that there are conflicting versions, or he doesn't have to choose between one. It has to be simple for the technician.
Right. Right.
So why not just show him the most recent version? I mean, in time.
Right.
So one dispatcher made the change yesterday, and another dispatcher made the change today. They didn't communicate, so he will take the version of today.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. When you do the mutable property query and get the all of the versions that do not have that have not been superseded, that do not have a successor, then you're always it's always possible that you're going to get more than one. So you take those results, order them by the modified date, which now you should make sure that is a field of that fact, and then take the most recent one.
Because there is always a possibility to show him multiple versions, but that's going to complicate the user interface, and I think it's going to disturb the technicians.
Yeah. Yeah, I could think of one case in which maybe they do want to see that, is that if they they actually put the address into their GPS and they can't find it, they might say, hey, what, somebody entered the wrong address. Hey, wait a minute, somebody else entered a different address. Let me try that one instead. That's an edge case on top of an edge case.
Yeah.
If it's concurrent and one of them is wrong.
Yeah, but is it worth disturbing all the technicians all the time just to give in a very exceptional case to avoid problems?
Right. Yeah.
So if he doesn't find the address, he will call in, and then the dispatcher will probably say, "Oh, I have two addresses," and he will merge them, and then the problem has been solved. And then but the dispatcher, he has to see all the versions.
Right. Yes.
And I can imagine that a dispatcher would like to see even full history. Do you have any UI patterns?
Yes.
Or that?
Yeah, it would be. So this is also something that we solved on the Nameless project. I'm trying to think if. So let me just try to describe it. So it's actually we kind of took inspiration from the Git history, but as you know, Git is a pro tool, and it takes people a long time to understand what Git is doing. But so what we did is took all of the property facts and put them into chronological order, but then had some coding up the side that indicated that this one was an immediate predecessor. I'm sorry, this one was an immediate successor of the one just below it, because we did it in reverse chronological order, or this one was a immediate successor of 2 or 3 down. So it was basically let's draw the tree just to 2 levels. If it got any more complicated than 2 levels, just ... This is related to something, but we're not going to give you all that detail. So So there you can see, that we made this change, we made that change concurrently. That's the most recent one, but there's a small fork showing up on the left-hand side, and then it's easy enough to draw that as a join if you were to resolve that conflict in the next one.
You really displayed it visually.
Yes, but just to 2 levels, not to the all of the various levels that a Git history will show you.
Okay. Because I was thinking if we just put it in a data grid, and like you say, you put them, for example, in chronological order.
Okay.
So and then every line also has made by and when.
Yeah, that's true. That is important information. Yeah.
Yeah. And you add a column predecessors, which most of the people will not look at, but that will reference to an ID or just the number of the column lines. And all these predecessors, you just put them in one column. Yeah.
Yeah.
Predecessors are number 1 / number 2, number 5. So then they have the full information. If it's a complicated tree, they will have to search. But in most cases, it's going to be quite obvious. On top, you have the oldest version, and below you have the most recent versions. And we could even color code, say, okay, the current versions, we make them, for example, green. If there are multiple current versions.
There you
go. Something like that. If we could just display the data in a grid.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And then, so it can be in reverse chronological order. So you see the most recent at the top. But the numbering starts from the bottom. So you've got version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up. Version 25 at the top. And so that row 20 that's labeled 25. Even that number 25 is not part of the fact. It's just generated because you ordered them that way. And then the predecessors column says this is based on numbers 24 and 22. So then you might see 25 and 23 in green. So that'll be your indication. There's more than one current version. You might even have a filter, so you can just filter down, just show me the current versions. So you can say, oh, yep, there is a conflict that needs to be resolved. And then if you give the dispatcher some user interface to say specifically, I'm resolving a conflict, so I'm going to select this one or that one, and then make some edits and then push save. So they might just say this one's correct, so let me select this one, push save, and now you've got a new version that merges those two. Yeah.
Because we could have under that grid view another line, or another grid with just one line, and when he clicks cells, it copies into his version, the newest version then.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, I think that's something that people would understand, even if they don't fully understand the predecessor column. Seeing the highlight of the current version would give them the information they need.
And I think the filter that you mentioned is a good idea, because we could say, okay, we just want the latest, the current versions. In that case, for example, 3 current versions, we display the 3. Or next level, we want the current versions and the original one. How was it original? And all the changes in between, we leave out. Or a third possibility, we show the full history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes
I was thinking one of the things that I like to see when I'm using Git is if I've got two versions, 2 branches, I want to see the earliest common ancestor. or I'm sorry, the latest common ancestor. So what's the point at which those two things branched? And let me see the differences between those. So yeah, that
might be a fourth option in the filter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. No, we are going to try that one. And then to get it one step further, I think there we have to draw a little bit. Wait, let's see. Did I still have this Excalibur? Wait, where was that link for that website where we could draw? Excalibur, that was it. To explain that without drawing, that's going to be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago that I used that that tool. Live collaboration, start session. I can just send it to you. Was it? No, go to this one, Michael. Okay. I think you should have the.
Yes, I do.
The link. Yeah. And I stop this streaming.
All right.
No, let's find out again how it works. It's a long time ago. One of the things I have to do, and that's originally I found it a very difficult data problem, but I think we modeled it quite well in Jinaga, and now it becomes a difficult UI problem. If you remember the work unit in the model, so a work unit was a technician is doing something from a particular time to a particular time,
right,
certain
yes.
activity. So practical, that means he takes his telephone and he pushes the button, I start working, or I start doing maintenance, or I start driving to the customer. Yeah, and every time the previous activity is stopped, time is registered, and the new activity is started with a big start time. So if we draw this, for example, this is the ongoing activity. You see it on your screen?
It's not showing up yet.
Should be live collaboration, yeah.
Let's see. Let me make sure I clicked on the correct link.
Yeah, it's that Excalibur website with the link that I sent you.
Okay, yes, now I'm seeing it.
Okay. I see a question mark, unknown user. Okay. So here vertical is my timestamp, and my activity starts. You see my cursor?
Yes.
Yeah. At a certain moment, so this was activity A, for example. I end activity A and I start activity B. And here I stop B, becomes C, and so on, yeah? Then I have D and E. So that's what the technician originally entered. Now, a problem is that technicians forget from time to time to press the button. So they were having a pause, and then they go back to work, and they are so happy to go back to work, they forget to press the button.
Yeah.
Then we have a problem because they cannot change it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, okay, we need a way, technicians, to allow them to modify it. But to keep things simple, a technician, I will only let the technician do two things. So, for example, he's currently in activity F.
Mm-hmm.
He forgot to push the button, and actually it should have started here. So I will allow him to change the start time of the latest of the ongoing activity.
Okay.
Second thing, he pressed the wrong button at the correct time, but the wrong button. So it's not activity F, it's activity G, for example, that he's doing. Yeah. So change. So, so far, not too complicated. But then the dispatcher is he has all the power, and he should be able to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
He might say, for example, somewhere in the past, this is not correct. Activity B ended here. But because a technician is always doing something, either he's working, either he is resting.
Mm-hmm.
So this gap, either he has to say this has to change also. So activity C will start earlier, or we are going to add an activity, for example, activity H, which goes from here to there.
Right.
Now, of course, you could have conflicting changes. And there it becomes really messy.
Mm-hmm.
Because in that data grid, what we did was actually we showed the data from one record, yeah, one message, or a combined record. And in our model, activity A starting here, ending there is one message. Activity B is another message. Activity H is another message, and so on, which each a mutable start and end time. So the moment that we want to go and change, a relatively easy thing would be just change this switch point. That means there are two records involved.
Yeah. So the way that I like to address that is to only capture the starting point and let the endpoint be just dependent property. So activity A ends where the earliest activity that started after activity A begins. And so it can run that query. It can find, okay, B is the next one that started, and so A's endpoint is B's starting point.
Yeah.
And now at least you only need to change one record. It's still a pretty complicated query because you've got the start point of an activity. The start time is now a mutable property, so you've got the mutable property pattern going on there, and so therefore you can't have just a single start time. You might have conflicting changes, as you said. So yeah, that does complicate things. So the simple way to look at it might be to just from those candidate start points choose the earliest one, and so that's similar to the choice that you were talking about for what you display to the technician versus what you display to the dispatcher. And so then you just make that choice, and then you can render out a timeline, and so somebody looking at that timeline, if they can see that it's wrong, could make a change to correct it, and then when you record that change, you record all of the predecessors. So so even though you're not seeing all the predecessors, you're not seeing all of the times at which B could have started. When you record when they slide it around as a dispatcher, then it's capturing all the predecessors that were in memory that were kind of hidden from that dispatcher, and so it collapses it down to just one possible start point. This might be one of those cases in which even the dispatcher doesn't need to see the full history, at least not in this view, because it would be really confusing to see the full history in this view. Maybe there's a different view that's listing all of the changes, so an audit view, and there we use the same kind of user interface metaphors to say, okay, at this point, this dispatcher changed the start time of this task or this activity.
Because I was thinking, what is important is actually this view is always limited in. They are never going over 1 day, so it will be either the last task, because a task could have many activities. So they started working for a customer here, and they ended there. So these are all the activities inside that task. Worst case, I think they will go from midnight until midnight. So visually, it should still match on the screen. But then what is important, I think, to the dispatcher is what was the original timeline as it was entered by the technician. So what was the base, and then perhaps what are the changes made by the technician to see what was it a change that was really logical, or has the technician been trying to hide things? It was too late at the customer, and afterwards the customer complained, so he changed he changed history. Because it's still a tracking tool as well.
Right.
But I'm wondering if I just show multiple timelines. So that's the real one, the original one, and then I have a few modifications, and then, for example, here I have the 2 current timelines. But then to make changes,
right. So I'm wondering if so if this is the way that you want to show it, that people will understand it, then maybe it makes sense for this to be the way that you capture it as well. So rather than it being just a collection of activities, each with mutable properties for what was the task, what was the start time, instead, if it is a collection of timelines, and so every time you take some sort of action, you create a brand new timeline, and that timeline has references to all of the activities that have occurred so far on that timeline. And that way you can, so when the technician pushes the button to say, I'm starting a task right now, that will capture, let me see if I can draw a quick diagram here. So we've got, let me select the correct tool. Yep. So we've got our timeline, and up here we've got activity. So an activity has a start time, and it refers to a specific task.
Yeah.
So a timeline has many activity successors or predecessors.
Yeah.
So when a technician pushes the button to say, I'm starting a new activity, it creates the activity pointing to the task that they selected with the start time that was current on their phone. And that creates a new timeline with all of the previous activities of the prior timeline plus this new one. So now you've got a historical transaction. And in fact, you can say this is, this will allow you to replace one or some set of concurrent timelines with another timeline. And so maybe that's the important bit of the model. So rather than try to infer timelines, here you're being very explicit. This was the timeline that the technician intended at that particular moment. And another thing that might help with this is we've got our start time, and then we've got our actual time. So we know that they push the button at a particular time, but they might have changed the start time. So if start time and actual time are the same, then they just push the button to say, I'm starting this activity now. But if they went in and edited the start time, then with the activity that we captured there is for an earlier, or maybe even later, but probably earlier start time than the actual time.
To capture these two in the activity.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because then you know that something changed, in fact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But with a timeline fact, so that means every time the technician starts a new fact, a new activity, the timeline will change.
Right. Yes. You've captured that complete and consistent timeline. So this timeline consists of these particular activities, and so you don't have to infer that anymore. Now, here you are taking advantage of structural sharing. So the new timeline that you create points to the same activities as the previous timeline, plus one new one. So so you're still only capturing each activity once, but now you've got this history of timelines of those activities.
And every time somebody changes something, for example, a dispatcher changes something, he will also create a new timeline.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So I think that will support the interface that you've got up here, where you're showing multiple timelines, and it solves the problem of changing a start time affecting two records, because all you're doing is you're recording one. You're just recording the start time. You're not recording the end time, but now the end time is inferred as the start time of the next activity in the same timeline. So you're only using predecessors in order to figure that out. So every time you look at that timeline, that particular snapshot, that particular instance of the timeline, you're going to compute the same value. So you're not going to get weird behavior where the end time of something is changing because you're resolving conflicts.
Because otherwise, my user interface had to make sure that there is no overlap.
Mm-hmm.
and the two messages should be one transaction.
Yeah. Yeah, and that starts to get complicated. So one of the consequences here is that there has to be an activity that is at the end of the day, with a start time of when they finished work, so that you've got bookends, so that you've closed out your last activity. And yeah, if they forget to check out and leave the timer running, then now the dispatcher can see that, hey, wait a minute. You're still working on this task? I don't think so. It's dinner time.
No, that does happen. For example, a mobile phone which ends up without battery, or which breaks down. Then the technician cannot deactivate what he's doing, cannot switch it to pause. And that's one of the reasons why the dispatcher should be able to change everything.
Right.
I'm gonna think about that timeline ID, because that might indeed be the way to make the query a lot easier. And you just say that timeline, immediately you have all the facts, all the activities involved. That might be what I was missing. I'm gonna think about that one.
Well, we had a hello on YouTube. Jim F says hello.
Hello, Jim. If he has some good ideas to how to solve this user interface problem, please let us know.
Yeah. This is a good one.
No, historical modeling has also influences on the interface, and that's something which is actually completely new. At least to me. Else was there? Yeah, that were the things that I noted these two weeks.
Very nice. And the things that I've been working on. Let me see if we're at a point somewhere up here that I can demonstrate what it was that I've been working on. So yeah, this model should work. So let me go ahead and switch this so that it's not a specific version. Oh, I should probably share this so you can see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, screen 2. And
it's coming up. Yeah, I see it.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and install the latest package that's been published out there. Yeah, 2.20. Yay. All right. So let's go ahead and get the latest graph is. Well, that's not going to matter too much, but just so that we have the latest graph is. Okay. So we've got this this model in here where you've got this is the company employee model. And so let's suppose that I want to write a query or a specification. Employees of company. So we're going to say given a company, I want to match company facts. So from employee in facts of type employee. Let's suppose that I forget something here and I just say select employee. So there we go. Let's run that. And now we get not a not implemented exception, but we get a specification exception.
Okay.
The variable employee should be joined to the parameter company. Consider where employee.company equals company. Oh, okay. Paste that in there, and now I've got a good specification. So
much better co-pilot. That's Michael as co-pilot now.
Yep. So you could have also written this as facts of type employee dot select. Could have also written it as that, and then you would still get a here from the employee I'm selecting company. This actually is a scenario that I'm currently working on. If I had said employee, then it's a problem. So you need that where clause. Now, of course, this select employee, that's just an identity. If I just simply return facts of type employee, then it's saying that the set should be joined to the parameter company. Consider facts of type employee with this this where clause inside of the of type. And so now that's doing the same thing, where it's basically applying that where clause as it's selecting those facts. So yeah, working on better error messages. This one right here. Oh, yeah, that's funny. It's trying to convert it to a Boolean, so that doesn't even compile. So this one that we saw before that worked, it's still an incorrect specification, but it's incorrect in a very subtle way. So we've got this facts of employee that we've done here, but we've completely erased that here because we're just for each employee selecting the company. So it currently can't see all of the work that went into your specification that it's not actually using in the projection. So that's the scenario I'm working on right now, is for it to see, wait a minute, you did this selection of an employee, but it's you didn't use that in the projection. Yeah, the projection should include the employee somewhere.
Yeah.
And then the another very similar scenario is if I had two levels. So I don't think this one is complex enough. Yeah, this one's not really complex enough to show. But if I've got two levels and I say from, let's pretend that it's complex enough. So I've got from employee in facts of type employee, and I remember this one. So where employee dot company is equal to company. And then I continue and say from manager facts of type manager so I'm actually just naturally writing the where clause that I would want to be there. So maybe this is what I want to write. I don't yet have the manager effect, but I forget that line. So this is the next scenario that I want to make work, where it should suggest not that the manager is, should be related to company, but that the manager should be related to employee.
Yeah.
So, if you recall, the message here said should be joined to the parameter company. In that other scenario, it should say to the prior variable employee. So, still a little bit of work to do there.
That will definitely help us to getting good error messages.
Yep, I think so. Yeah, so I want
and there was still that issue.
Hmm?
There was still that issue with the diagram when we want to visualize fact multiple levels.
Yes.
Is that one solved in this release or not yet?
It is not yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so I should be able to select employee and then each do a facts.all to get the employee names. And then, I should be able to render that that set of facts, and I should get, these are the employees, they should have bars around them, and then these are all the names. Still want to make that work too. That one's actually a bit easier, as it turns out. So I probably should
because
have
having these visualizations is really because often I find myself going back to VS Code from Visual Studio, just a portion of code to visualize.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty important tool to move back and forth between. In fact, I can see building the model in notebooks, copying that code into Visual Studio, building the assembly, but then now referencing that assembly inside of notebooks to continue exploring it. So you've got that ongoing iterative cycle.
Anyway, I started appreciating notebooks. It gives me the possibility to try things out and to send them in an isolated way.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy to show a fact where there is a problem and to send it to somebody, because if you have to send a complete solution, Visual Studio solution, it's often not clear.
Yes, that is true. So that's a case where you want to copy that code back into notebooks and just keep it there. Yeah. Jim F says that the immutable journal duplicate records with appended facts is a good solution. So, I think he's referring to the solution that we have of the appending timelines with new activities.
Okay, I'm gonna try to work something out about that one. Good.
All right. So, I think that's in progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, we are getting something that feels like software.
Uh-huh.
Let's say like a software product.
Yeah.
Good. So I'm gonna try first that SQLite implementation.
Yep, that's that is the save, as you said, is probably going to be a pretty straightforward thing to do. The query, that's going to be something else.
That's gonna be for another week, I think.
Yeah.
But that SQLite, because actually the weak part of SQLite is when you have multiple concurrent database access. That's the part where you have to find another database. But because Jinaga is between the database access and the client, so Jinaga is serializing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps even for the server, SQLite might be not a bad solution.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
And that has the advantage of keeping things simple, because if you have to Postgres, it's a bit of configuration, while SQLite, as you say, you just put in the C# file and it works.
Yeah, embedded database. It's just ultimately files on a hard drive somewhere.
Because I saw the limit, the size limit was something like, it was incredible for just a lightweight database. So
yeah, and it's kind of interesting to me. The main reason that you would have something like Postgres is so that you can have multiple clients that are all using the same database, or maybe you can have a cluster of databases and then a cluster of load balanced web servers that are all and the Jinaga infrastructure is really intended for the application and the database to be on the same node. So when you replicate several different servers, you're also replicating those databases, and then they are synchronizing one to the next. So yeah, having that as an embedded database is actually a good implementation for that infrastructure.
And even if performance would be a little bit lower, it doesn't really matter, because the message is queued. So let's see when you try it in practice how it works.
Yep. It wouldn't be the Netflix scale, but yeah, it'll scale for our size of applications.
Good. Next week, same time, Michael?
Yes, indeed. Same time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
I'm gonna call my customer.
Okay, good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.